Hi, all. I'm Dan Smegrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. Today is Thursday, January 13th, 2022, and you're watching WGAN TV live at 5. We have an awesome show for you today, how to make your potential virtual tour competition irrelevant with mashups. And to talk to us about that is Mike Leifsov. Hey, Mike, good to see you.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Doing great, and nice to be visiting with you today. Mike is the owner of Wingman Media, Brisbane, Australia, on the Gold Coast of Australia. And I invited Mike to be on the show today because he published to the We Get Around Network Forum, WGANforum.com, a mashup of a virtual tour that I just thought was awesome as a way to make the competition irrelevant. So, Mike, how about you show us that tour and take us through all the different tools, solutions that you use to create it?
No worries. Let me just share my screen. Make it full screen. It's already. So that's the front end. I would say it's a splash image, whatever you used to call it. And then you can see some points of interest where every tour starts. Why there's so many of them? Because as you can see, 3D icons, they just represent Matterport tours. And they've been made purely for promoting venue of this place. So they have some venues in the restaurant over here. I'm not sure what kind of venue is happening at the coaching center over here, but I was asked to do it as a venue place, or maybe it wasn't a venue place. Anyway, what this all about is my partner providing some kind of a website tour for the clients when they ask for something like this. Purely, they focused on capturing just spaces for venues to be listed on the marketplace. But when the customer asks, they can create a tour and let them use them on the websites. I don't think they're allowed to use any of the Matterport tours, but when it's part of the bigger picture, my partner lets them use this. So
Okay.
we can. So
what platform are you using here, first of all, for this hero image, this aerial shot?
So this is 360.tours platform. I've heard a lot about it. I've seen a lot of examples of things done, even the same way as mine. So you have like a splash image, which can be an aerial photo or aerial 360. I would prefer to have an aerial 360 here because you can see more, because there's a lot of goal field hidden here. Probably not much to see on the left side, but still the 360 would look much better. And in fact, I believe if you use 360, you can be on a previous subscription tier, because for you to be able to use Photos, just a flat Photos, you need to be on a business tier. Because that's what this feature introduced. But if you're using the individual, you don't need to do Photos here. And if you have a individual subscription tier, but you can just use the 360, because 360 is just a panorama. So you just start with that, then you start building your hotspots.
Okay.
On top of it.
So just for clarification, the platform is 360 Tours. That's spelled out THREE 60 SIXTY.tours. 360.
Yeah, that's correct.
So your hero image, you chose to use a 2D still image that could have been a 360. I'm just dying to see that 3D of that building. I just imagine that's a Matterport tour that's under that 3D icon.
There's two of them actually. So one represents the coaching center. It's actually really small, so we can just quickly jump to it. It also done with some 360 to show a golf course, because like I said, the tours are made for the client to be listed on a venue marketplace. So and this tour specifically done for the client website. So we have to kind of use, we kind of repeat ourselves. So you can actually walk through the mini golf in a Matterport tour, but at the same time, there's a separate walk inside the website tour.
Okay.
So this is a small area, and this was done before sunrise. You can see a lot of fog, and then later when we go through the driving range, you can see the sun is going up. This was easy, like everybody says, if you need to scan something outdoor, do it before sunrise or after sunset. So that was enough for me, like a 30 minutes window to scan everything around. You can actually see it's very good.
Okay, good. So
There's
in this
not a
tour
lot of-
here, you're using Matterport. You have a Matterport highlights reel. You've shot 360 scans to do the walk around, and then we see some 360 views that are on the exterior.
Yeah, I was trying to actually capture the driving range with my camera, and I started doing that. But look, with every step, it was getting brighter and brighter, and I just stopped. I think I went behind that bin. Look, sometimes clients don't clean stuff, and there's nothing I can do. And you can see it
Okay.
stops here. But in fact, if I enable the probably another 3 spots here, that's where I went to the first section here, and then it just stopped aligning because it was already bright with sunlight and things like this.
So we were,
I stopped.
we were talking before the show began that since you did this tour, that you own a Leica BLK 360 now. So I could imagine that you might have used that BLK 360 to shoot the driving range in sunlight.
Yes, I would definitely brought it there and tried to use it. It's just not somehow, sometimes it's just really time consuming. And look, I usually try to do medium scans with HDR off or just HDR2. So that's 3 minutes for each scan. If you actually
like a BLK 360 scan, setting it on HDR medium takes about 3 minutes.
About 3 minutes. And actually, if you're scanning during the civil twilight, which is before the sunrise and after sunset, Matterport camera works, and it's not really that faster to do it with BLK. The BLK will help you if it's not that civil time. You need to do it during the day, and that's where Matterport simply won't work. And I wouldn't even use it because I know how much. Look, even with conversions, trying to do 360 view and then convert to 3D, it might work with 2 or 3 of them, but then you start generating a lot of errors, and that's just not nice.
All right, so that's the example of Matterport. Then I think you have some standalone 360s within the tour. Maybe we can go back out to the hero image. We can close out of that Matterport space.
Yeah, and I think I'll maybe try to do the walk through the golf cars because it's much nicer. At least it's when you go through the driving range, you see that bright sun and not much you can do about. This is at least not affected by the sun. I don't think, I don't remember exactly, but I believe it was done during the midday, even by my shadow, which somehow not visible.
Okay.
I think I just disabled the full like 180, so I'm not, there's no vision of that.
Was this 360, was this shot as a Matterport 360 view within one of those other tours?
No, this one was shot with a Pilot Aero camera, which is a fantastic camera. I tried many others, and unfortunately, I can't find a match for a cheaper price. So I've done it with a
I'm sorry, just for clarification, this is a Lab Pano Pilot Error ERA camera that you use to shoot standalone 360s for this.
Yeah, that's correct. It provides 32 megapixel resolution, or so-called 8K. So it's quite good. It's not maybe as detailed as Matterport, but you can see it's maybe there's a bit of blurring at the
and I see some bubbles in there, so I imagine those are other 360s that you can go from bubble to bubble to bubble.
Yeah, exactly. So they asked me to capture, for example, the sitting area for parents if the kids are playing, or just any sitting area for anyone.
Okay.
So you can jump to that spot and you can see what it looks like from that spot.
And I also apologize to our viewers. I know it can look a little herky-jerky, but it's actually silky smooth when you look at this tour, not within all the technologies that we're using for WGAN TV Live at 5. But
Yeah,
it is
I'll
a
try
silky
not to.
smooth tour to look at.
I'll try not to rotate it fast, so it's maybe less affected by this. So after that, you can jump to this, for example, to another spot. There are actually many spots there, and maybe we can see it somehow on the interface inside at the back end. I just didn't want to have this a lot of bubbles jumping everywhere.
Yeah.
So I was kind of trying to create some walk.
So if you could close out of this for a second, and then maybe what we could do is to see there's other information on this screen, for example, up at the top. Maybe you could tell us about everything that is being displayed within this 360 tour.
So as I said, the 3D icons, they represent the Matterport tours. Everything that's jumping here as a pin is a kind of mini tours included in this one, and they represent separate walks. So for example, this one will go through the driving range like this. This one represent they have like a separate venue they call the food lawn track. I don't know why, but that's what they call. So they want me to create a walkthrough through that. A little bit boring. I don't think you need to walk through that, but
yes, but I think what we can see here for clarification, you did not put all your 360s on the Hero 2D image. You put a couple of key either Matterport tour or 360s, and then once you click on, let's say, this food truck area, you have yet more 360s that can be viewed.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know why I decided to do it that way. As you said, I can definitely do it on the hero screen, as you call it. But I thought it's much better to separate them. And I don't know if they actually you see, there's actually the name of the truck shown here.
Yep.
So you know what actually you're exploring.
Okay. So if you could close out of this, and maybe just take us up to the top, I see a couple of options. There's something that says more. It looks like there's a sharing screen.
I think it's just the information panel. So that
if you
one.
go up to the top, so there's a contact.
You mean this one. So there is a sharing button which allows to share on a Facebook, Twitter, and allow copy URL if you want to insert it in the SMS or maybe emails. This button, I think, just show what trucks they are inside the tour.
Yep.
Actually,
so now you can
tried.
see.
Oh, look, see, it can actually. I didn't see that feature. Maybe it's a new one. So look, when you actually hover over the names, you see the kind of highlighting in yellow. I didn't see it before. That's interesting.
You could charge more for that now that you know that you offer that.
Yeah. I don't see you can jump inside them using it. Let's just try it. Unfortunately, no.
And then
so
I think there was one other item on that top. If we close out of that menu and we look at the top, so we saw sharing, we saw the markers, we saw contact, and I see a map. I
think it just shows the same map. Maybe there is a way to separate what's shown here. Maybe you can have an actual map, just drawn map. Maybe it can be a 3D thing. But at this point, it just shows the same splash screen. I think I assigned it that way because that's actually a map.
Yeah.
Technically, it is a map just represented with a actual photograph.
Okay. That sounds good. I'm going to stop you there. And what I'm going to ask you before you show us the behind the scenes of how you created the tour is how about telling us about Wingman Media Brisbane?
We started about 3 years ago. I first started with my friend and neighbor who is a videographer. I don't think we were focused on Matterport tours. It was mostly drone related things and mostly
Yes.
related to cinema because my neighbors is kind of doing some documentaries and things. But he actually told me about the Matterport camera, and at first I didn't even pay attention to that. So I said, no, let's just focus on the drone thing and stuff like this. But then we decided to buy it. We found one that was sold by a guy from a rural Queensland. I can't imagine how hard it was for him to sell anything there with Matterport. So I think they just gave up and decided to sell. So we bought the camera, and I started drilling into Matterport thing, and I realized it's actually really nice, and it can be a good business tool to use. And I actually didn't even see it in Australia, anybody using it. I bought my own property. I'd never seen these tools on the property listings and things like this. So it was really interesting. So we started doing it together, but then we kind of split because my neighbor was focused only on cinema. He dreamed about really expensive drone, and we decided that it's kind of we can't even afford it at that point. We split, and I primarily focused only on Matterport tours. I didn't even offer photography at the beginning. I don't have any degree in photography, but I had a camera, even the film camera, when I was 12. So I was running around with that camera trying to capture everything I could. Then I spent hours trying to develop films and develop photographs as well.
I'm sorry,
But
are you describing me or you?
I guess we all have some similarities in that.
All right, so you offer Matterport. I think I heard you say you offer photos. What other services Wingman Media Brisbane offering?
I'm trying to offer aerial 360 because there is a demand for that, and especially for venue places. I've done race courses where they would benefit from 360 aerial. Golf courses as well. That picture that we were talking about here, picture, it's actually not mine. I was supposed to take 360 there, but the client invited some photographer and they had a drone, and they took a picture for them, and they had no idea that's actually just a flat picture. So they didn't tell, they told me not to bring a drone. So I came without drone, and when I started building, I didn't even know what's coming. And then that 2D photo came instead of the 360.
Yeah.
So what else I can
Google
offer?
Street View?
Street View as well. And I tried to get some expertise in a Google My Business listing, because the Street View is attached to that. You need to understand why you're offering that to people. Otherwise, it kind of doesn't make any sense.
All right. So I heard that you have a Matterport camera. You have, what are you shooting for photos?
I'm using Canon 5DS. I bought it. It's probably not the best camera for real estate. Maybe my lenses are crooked, but I can't get really sharp pictures out of it. Okay. And another reason, of course, I shoot with the f11 or really small aperture just to get everything in focus. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe I can't find the right aperture for my lens that will make the picture sharp at the distance I need it.
Okay. So I think I heard you say BLK 360.
Yeah. I'll try to make them in order of purchase. So my wife is laughing. So the next one is a Pilot Era, and I love this camera. Like I said, I can't find any replacement any cheaper, and I use it all the time, even sometimes just to do the community tours. I've done some tours in the local forest, so people can walk on trails inside the forest. And the last purchase was a BLK 360 scanner.
I was like looking for it. 360. It's a little bit pricey. Why did you end up getting one?
Look, mostly because of the jobs I'm doing for my partner, who is a marketplace, because it's kind of benefits, and they agreed. Okay, I remember the story. I was asked to do a convention center in Brisbane. It was really a big argument how long it will take. I was absolutely sure it's a 10 days job because it's huge. There's multiple floors, big areas, open areas. So I didn't have it. So I didn't have BLK 360. So I started chasing where I can rent it from. I found a place that rented for $400 a day. But if you take the camera, if you hire it for 10 days, it dropped the price significantly. So I think it's $1,500 for 10 days, which is quite affordable. And then I start realizing if I start using rental camera, all money goes to the rental company, not to me. So the purchase at the retail price brand new, which is about 31,000 Australian dollars, wasn't an option for me. I don't have this funds. Yeah, it's a big money. So I started chasing used ones. Even found a lot of scammers selling them really cheap. Stayed away from them. And then I called the actual distributor, and we had a chat. They said they have one for 21,000, and it was kind of more than I could afford to pay. I just left them my email address, and in a few weeks, they sent me email that they want to get rid of their own demo unit, and they want 15 plus GST. And I said, sorry, I can only afford 15 with GST included. They agreed to that, and that's how I became an owner of such beautiful device.
That's good. What'd your wife say?
She left. About the yeah, it's hard. It's kind of really hard. Even though I mostly borrowed money from my mother, who is living with us because she's old. And not many of them came from the actual our account, but it still was. The problem was I received a big payment from my partner for the previous jobs, and that was supposed to be partially funded, at least 40% of that purchase. But it's still kind of, I need to find another 10. She's still kind of complaining, but she understands now that it brings some extra money.
Good.
Sometimes
Good.
it makes me work really hard and long, but at least I can build something I can be proud of.
Well, I think one of the exciting things about having a Leica BLK360 mashed up with Matterport and other things that you're doing, it is a way to differentiate yourself, because if you have a job that's outdoors and it's a big space or a big convention center and there's a high ceiling and that's important, then that BLK360 is going to differentiate you from anyone else in the greater Brisbane, Australia area that could possibly shoot the space.
Yeah, I believe
it'll be, they either want it or they don't, and they want it at the price that you charge, or too bad so sad, it's not an option, because you now have mashed up Matterport, Leica BLK360, pilot Lab Pano pilot error, and now and you use this platform 360 tours. So all of a sudden, what you're offering, no one else can touch you, because they either don't have the expertise of mashing together the different platform software tools, or they can't afford to go buy the BLK360 because it's an expensive camera scanner. In the United States, I want to say it's 18,000 or 19,000
yeah,
US,
it's 18,000
plus tax. But if you make that decision, you at least now have something that makes you unique.
Look, I do offer, even for residential, I've done one job where I used BLK 360, but I told the vendor from the beginning that it's going to be expensive, and B, it's going to take a lot of time. So I spent 6 hours doing a house inside and out, and it was actually quite a big, the house was not really big, but it has another house. So I had to kind of, and the reason why I was doing that, you need to kind of transition from one house to another, and that made sense to use a BLK 360, and at the same time, not just to create some small paths, but actually go around the house, in front of the house, in front of the small house behind, and around the small house, and actually capture the whole driveway, just to show what's possible. And maybe it was underpaid, even though like $600 is not that small money to earn a 6 hours job. But at the same time, I've got something to show. I can tell my customers now, you can get this, and this is a premium. or you can get just the internals and a few 360 views. Like I'm doing rentals now for one agent, and that's what I do. I scan inside, I create one 360 on each side, and that's all people need technically. But for those who selling something really expensive or ready to pay more, I can actually create the whole floor plan in Matterport, actually, the whole site plan, including the internal.
Yes, you want to get your wife back? We're going to explain that to her to say, look, this is
Yeah, I
really
don't
a
know.
good investment because
She
you're going
would,
to be
she
able to
would
make
be laughing a lot. She already laughed.
because you're going to be able to, you are able to differentiate yourself from any potential competitor through the tools, solutions, and gear that you're using to create this mashup. I think it's super exciting. Take us into the back end of 360 Tour, please. Show us how you created the tour that you showed us.
Sure. Then just a second. So go back, share. I need to get out of
Incidentally,
full
while
screen.
Mike is setting up, on Matterport tours, he offers his optional extras, highlight reel, the video teaser, floor plans, virtual staging, lead generation form, Matter Pack. So full service in terms of Matterport and optional add-ons. So this is the back end to 360 Tours, 360.tours, THREESIXTY, 360.tours. So I imagine you signed in, ID, password, boom, here's your account. Tell us how you created the tour that you showed us earlier.
So the demand to use 360.tours came from my partner because they used it for another client in the UK and they loved it. And I don't think they kind of ready to use any other platform because I could do the same tour in Panuta VR. And it would be much easier for me because I know it better. It's kind of desktop software, so everything is here. You don't need to upload anything anywhere until it's ready, of course. So, but this is what it is. I asked to do it in this platform, and that I was given as a tool and sent in the field to do something with that. So it's actually represent all this what you see in the tour. So there is a. This is just a 2D image that acts as a splash screen. There may be some other ways to build the tour, but I just watched some videos and I thought that's the way to do it. If we go back, interesting. It's actually kicking me out of interface, so I'll just have to switch between these two.
Okay.
The rest are representing each tour jumping on each tour done with pilot area only.
So I'm a little bit lost. Let's go a little bit slower for me. How did you bring the digital assets into the platform? Maybe you could start with the panoramas. How you took some individual panoramas with the LabPano Pilot Air camera. What was the process for uploading those tours to 360 Tours, those panoramas?
So if you scroll down, you can actually see the interface for uploading. It's all here. So if you want to create new panorama, just click this button.
Okay.
And you can upload the image. I think it's here to save panorama. Just a second. See, it's switching interface and it's a bit hard.
Okay.
There is a button called batch upload. That's what I was talking about with you before.
Okay, a little bit before the show. So you have a choice. You can upload either an individual 360 panorama, an equirectangular JPEG image, or you can upload a batch of them at one time.
No. I think that's the single upload button. You just say batch because you can drop multiple files on it, or you can drop a single file. There is no separate button for uploading any single file just for that.
Okay, so let's go back if you would. Let's just stay on 360s for the moment. I see one that says mini golf course 1, and then there's some options there to see it. I can imagine it's a 360, so that's okay. And then there's a little pencil there, which I imagine is to edit it. Could you open that and just let us see what is associated with that particular panorama?
This one, actually, that's interesting. Look, it's supposed to let you actually edit the title. Let me try it again.
Okay.
Instead of just going,
Yeah, I imagine again, because of all the technology we use for WGA and TV Live at 5, it may be creating some conflicts with using the platform itself. That's certainly a possibility.
yeah, that's a bit weird.
All right, so take us back. Let's just go back to the editor for a second. Without clicking on anything, had that demonstration of that pencil worked, what is it that we would have seen?
I think it's just supposed to make it editable, and then
Okay.
you just put a name there. But look, I've done this like a year ago, and
Yeah, I'm with you. So
it's always like this. You use software once, then you come the second time, and you need to remember some stuff.
yeah, and I'm sure it's possible that it's changed since you've done it as well. Do you remember how you brought in Matterport tours?
Oh, that's the Matterport tours are easier. So you just go here in the hero screen, and you just need to place these icons here, where you can place them. So that actual button, maybe for the placement.
Well,
I see what I told you. When it's not full screen, the picture for some reason cannot be. That's where the
yes,
edit
because just
button
for
is.
a moment there, I could see the edit go by.
Yeah. I saw
Yeah.
that too. Okay, so that's just the setup for the while hovering. So that's how you can choose an icon.
So this is good to see this screen to say, okay, you've clicked on your hero image, you've moved your cursor, it's let you edit, a pop-up window shows up, and now I think what we're seeing is the first is set which icon do you want for, and I think just by looking at it, it indicates, okay, there's 3D, there's video, there's a home button, there's a little map icon if you perhaps if you wanted to go to Google Street View. So okay, cool. And let's see.
And that's actually what it does. So you just specify the attribute of the marker, and that's what you put. And this is just the iframe for the Matterport tour.
Cool. But did you add the iframe of the Matterport tour to, or did you paste the link to the Matterport tour?
No, you're kind of copying it in your workshop in the Matterport. You're copying the embed code, and then you can just paste it here. You might need to adjust the width and the height if it's not what you want, but everything else can stay the same. So
okay, great. So really the workflow for Matterport is go copy the iframe within Matterport Workshop, then paste the iframe into the tour,
yeah,
into
correct.
360 tours. Okay.
And
so
then I think when we first clicked on the pencil on the panorama, we just couldn't see. We didn't pay attention to that small gray area with the editing a pencil. We can go back, and I'm sure it's there. It's just not appearing straight away.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. So let's cancel out of that. We'll go back into the content management system for 360 tours, 360.tours. And we want to go back to the back end. Yep. So, so I see our tours. If you go back to the top, so on the map itself, you only had a limited number of 360s, and those 360s you then annotated to add additional panoramas.
They actually on the map itself, on the hero image, I just have icons. And look, we can go back to the hero image
Okay.
in the edit mode, and then this is just another market to represent another tour. And this tour, if you go back to the backend, look, it says here, food truck lawn tour. So if you go back to the backend, that's it. So this tour is created separated. You can actually, if you don't want to start with a hero image, and if you want just to show people a food lawn tour, you can actually get that embed thing here. And then instead of sending people to the main tour, which is this hero image, you can actually start. And I think it was only the tour that's going to be there. We can actually try it. Sometimes though, it doesn't work with the, I think I copied another one, but look, it started with a different tour.
Yeah.
So there is no hero image anymore. There's not even reference to the map because it acts as a standalone tour. It's not, if I somehow put some go back thing, somehow I can put like a home icon here, or I can just implement the map. I can point back to another tour, and that will be the main tour representing all the small tours inside. But you can actually use it that way as well.
Okay, so so let's just go back there for 1 sec. I did want to mention here, Mike, we're actually going to have the owner of 360 Tours on WGAN TV live at 5. That's going to be on Thursday, February 10th, 2022. So we'll do a really deep dive into 360 Tours then. I think of today as just being a flavor because it's part of this discussion of making the competition irrelevant. So I think we're fine just taking a look at this screen. And we'll finish up here. So I see that you can add the client's logo, a link so that the logo is clickable. You have the title, name, email, and in fact, when we went back on that hero image on the front end, that's where that email and phone number had showed up.
Yeah, exactly. That's the client. It's actually two different things here. So this is a golf club details, and this is account that belongs to my partner. So they just built on the account because they're paying the hosting fee and things like this. We're using the platform.
Okay, I'm going to take us out of there and go back and visit. So you showed us the front end, you showed us the back end. Incidentally, I think Bowie is making a cameo appearance.
Well, he's going to entertain everybody. I'm quite sure of that. He's like to play with himself. He can do it for 30, 40 minutes.
We now have a cat video. So there
exactly.
we go. So we looked at the front end of your tour. We looked at the back end. And again, I think when I noticed your tour, when you posted it in the We Get Around Network forum as an example of something that you've been working on, and I thank you for that because you do post a lot to the forum about things that you're doing and examples. So you've posted a lot of tours on BLK 360 examples, large spaces. You have a whole separate conversation going on robots. We'll wait for you to
Oh, I have another one.
So we'll eventually have a show, I'm sure, on your solution that you've come up with, 360 meets robots. But title of today's show: How to Make Your Potential Virtual Tour Competition Irrelevant with Mashups, and you've done that. You've mashed up in this particular example Matterport standalone 360s shot with the Lab Pilot Error and using the platform 360 Tours, and then now you have in your back pocket, just in case you need it, a Leica BLK 360. And when you did this, did you realize that you were mashing up something that made your competition irrelevant?
No, I wasn't really aware that I'm going to do that much. If you remember, I actually did the street view there as well, with me just carrying the camera in my hands, because I didn't know how long it all will take. I was paid for to do. And it turned out I finished earlier, and I had my backpack, and I thought, what the heck, I'll just do it, and I'll put my logo because I'm not charging them, and people will see it. Maybe it's a good promotion for me, because I'm not really getting promoted from these things. They're usually hidden, they're sitting under the name of our partner, and it's kind of, the job is done, you pay it, and that's it. I can show it on my website, and I can show it on social or We Get Around network, but that's about it. So I do sometimes squeeze something of my own when I can, because even just this extra service my partner doesn't really keen to provide. For example, all the tours can be published on Google Maps. All the tours I've done can be published there, and some of them are really huge. Some will bring a lot of customers to the business, but I understand the position of my partner. They're doing it for the marketplace, and they don't really kind of stepping out and saying, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that.
But what I love without actually knowing it or consciously doing it, you are essentially making any virtual tour competitor totally irrelevant in your space, particularly someone who's just offering Matterport, because they're not offering Matterport plus 360 tours, or you mentioned earlier, I think Pano2 VR, another platform for building out a tour. When you start mashing up a Matterport shot tour with yet another platform like 360 tours or Pano2 VR or 3D Vista Pro, Virtual Tour Pro, Pilot One error to shoot 360s, like a BLK 360s, like a BLK 360 to shoot large spaces or to be able to shoot outdoors in the sun. All of a sudden, if anyone wanted to like shop around for anyone else that could do this, you're it. There's no one else in Brisbane, in the greater Brisbane, Australia area that can put all those tools together. And so you have a unique offering through mashups that totally makes the competition irrelevant.
Yeah, I believe I'm standing out from competition, but it's still kind of a, you really need to have a client that knows what they want, and actually, you know, sometimes people just looking Matterport tours. They don't really understand that some things cannot be done with Matterport. So if I'm found, I can explain, I can do more in case Matterport simply won't work alone. But usually it's just coming like as a single job to do some single tour. And I try not to overwhelm customers with things I can do. I try to explain everything from the beginning. Sometimes they say, oh, that's really great, you explain everything. But I think it's just reading an email that too long, has 2 pages long.
Yes, but the
really
good news
kind of
is if somebody looks at your tour and goes, I want that, there's no one else that in Brisbane, Australia that can do that. And then if you start adding your BLK 360 to that, no one else can do that. If you use a different platform to bring it all together, no one else can do that. So you're while you're building your business, you're creating these unique mashups that make potential competitors totally irrelevant.
Yeah, I agree. And look, yesterday I had an example of the same property done by me and by other photographer. Look, I don't know why, they could actually capture the whole property inside really well, but somehow they made such a bad dollhouse with not even capturing the floor inside the property. It's kind of all cracked around everywhere. And it was so bad that they actually disabled the dollhouse view and they disabled floor plan view. It's actually became just a nice tour without any dollhouse. We sometimes think if customers doesn't care about a dollhouse view, you can just do a tour quickly, charge them less, earn the same amount of money you want to earn per hour. It's because it's going to be quick, and the customers will be happy if they don't care about any dollhouse view. But it's not works all the time this way. for example, the tour I'm talking about was not accepted by a real estate agent. They said the first told them to the high dollhouse, floor plan, and everything, and they still weren't happy with the result. And literally in two weeks, they hired me to do that. And I didn't even use BLK 360. The property is near me. It's 10 minutes drive through the rural area, nice view and stuff like this. So I just came there before 3 hours before sunset. I did everything inside. It was already capturing really well. It was really overcast day and things like this. It was no sunlight even around. And at some point, I was not supposed to do actually around the house. There's two houses, one big and one small. I was not supposed to do anything around the house. I was just supposed to scan inside the house and then create a path to a smaller house to inspect. But when I start capturing from the deck, I start capturing grass in at least 2 meters radius around. And I realized, what the heck, I'll just go around and capture grass. And instead of having just a house sitting in a void, I will have some green area around. So it worked. And I didn't even use BLK. I was not supposed to do it. And I didn't even bring it with me.
Yes. Incidentally, you've mentioned, excuse me, you've mentioned a tip in two different ways that I think is just invaluable. The first time you offered the tip was, I was on site. I had my LabPano Pilot Error 360 camera. I had some extra time. I started creating Google Street View. I started creating blue lines of the golf course. I popped my logo in it. I didn't charge the client for it, but it was a way for people to discover the property on Google Street View and maybe do some promotion for you. So I think there was a learning opportunity to say, oh, I got this camera, I got the time, what can I learn? What something new can I do? And then the second time you mentioned it was the tip was you had the time, you needed to connect two houses. I guess the sun was not viewable at the time that you were shooting with your Matterport Pro 2 camera. So you started doing 360, if I understand correctly, 360 scan outdoors.
No, I didn't.
Did you do 360 views?
I did the 360 views because it's a huge property. It's actually 4 hectares. But
I'll take your word for that. That's a lot. You keep in mind,
yeah.
In America.
Yeah, but they have a flat area for the house, what it's called, house property envelope.
Did you say 400 hectares?
No, not 104, just 4, which is quite big. It's
hey,
like
Siri, how big is
10
4
acres.
hectares? Oh, 4 acres.
10.
Okay, 4 acres.
Not 4, 10, I believe.
10 acres?
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah, it's big, but the most of the property is kind of just a forest, and they have a flat area with
so you shot with 360 views so that people could see the property. I'm guessing the real estate agent, the estate agent, was not expecting that, and you kind of offered a bonus of some 360 views of the 10 acres so that people could walk around the property.
No. It's kind of huge to do 10 acres. I don't think you want even to do it with the BLK.
You did some to connect the two buildings.
Yeah. I'm just saying that because I started before sunset and I was lucky it was overcast. I didn't even need to wait till the sun going below horizon because it was already kind of, and considering it's sitting on the hill and it's still huge trees around and the sun is setting, the hills are blocking everything. So
perfect.
Before I even tried to create this pass, I already realized the camera working like indoor. So because there's a huge wraparound deck around the property, when I start going on a deck doing scans, not 360, the camera see below in front of the deck, and it's just a lawn, and it start capturing that green stuff in the minimap without any spots.
So there's a tip for those doing outdoors. If you want to do Matterport Pro 2 3D scans, not 360 views, 360 scans, the camera can't see the sun. The infrared gets messed up when the camera sees the sun. So you have a choice. You can either use the building to block the sun, so shoot on the opposite side of the building than the sun's located, or wait till the sunset, or get there before sun rises. or I think in your case with the 10 acres of property, there were hills.
Or the hills around everywhere. It's
So
just
the-
like it's really
so the
nice.
hills blocked the sun, even though it wasn't yet sunset. So you were.
Yeah, if it was like a flat field with nothing on the horizon at all, you would see the sun going below horizon. But because the hills are blocking horizon line, you just see the top of the hills. The sun is already down. So in some spaces, you can actually start using Matterport camera outdoor, even before the sunset or before sunrise. Sunrise is more tricky. It's kind of a for some point it's better because you start with the dark and every next frame is brighter. It's opposite when you do it before the sunset, because you're starting with a bright light and then the sun goes down and it's become darker. So if you start before sunset, you can actually go into the whole scanning. But in that particular property, it couldn't be done that way because if I came before the sunset, for example, I still need to do the pass first, and then I somehow need to get to the both properties when the sun is up. But the starting with the internals first, doing the big house, that's what most, and actually it's not good because you need to wake up people in the morning. Owners, you come at 4 o'clock, nobody likes it.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's better to come at 4 p.m. because the sun is setting down at 7 p.m. and it's just, you have 3 hours to do stuff inside, and that's more than an hour sometimes. Sometimes you look, oh, I've got to spend so much time outdoor. I have 2 hours left for the big house. I'm not going to do it. It's not enough time. But in fact, it is enough time, even if you don't skip on anything, even if you cover all the at least visible black voids, because they will get some behind the chair, behind everything. You can just move furniture, and it doesn't make any sense to do that at all. But look, you go fast. You can do it in a fast way. You just focus on what you see on the menu map, even though sometimes it's not that much reliable.
So these are the kinds of tips that you can get in the We Get Around Network forum, wganforum.com. Wingman at Mike Lysov in the We Get Around Network forum is known as at Wingman, and he writes these awesome tips. He shares awesome examples of what he's doing. If you're watching WGAN TV live at 5, I would encourage you to go to the We Get Around Network forum. And there's just so much to learn. And we're thankful that Mike is a member of the community and is willing to share with us, really in real time as he's learning. He's shooting with the Leica BLK360. He's posting to the forum. He's shooting with the Lab Pano Pilot Era. He's posting it to the forum. I suggest buying some piece of gear. He's got a suggestion on something that's going to cost you less and accomplish the same thing. So that's.
I'm actually sorry, Dan. I'm actually might go for the Lab Pano backpack because I still not sure if it's going to be much easier to carry because it's 2.5 kilograms. But at the same time, it's small, so I can take it everywhere I want. And the only thing that's stopping me is just a stupid PayPal charging me extra $40 because I've tried to convert from Australian dollars. So I'm just waiting for some funds to come from clients, and maybe we'll create another one.
Yeah, so those are examples of things that Mike writes about in the We Get Around Network forum, where you say, hey, what backpack should you use to carry your 360 camera? And there's all kinds of discussions. Mike, I'm so thankful for you to be on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We've been visiting with Mike Lysov. Mike is the owner of Wingman Media in Brisbane, Australia. His website, www.wingmanmedia.com.au, and in the We Get Around Network forum at Wingman. For Mike in Brisbane, Australia, and I'm in Atlanta, I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network forum. You've been watching WGAN TV.